Some cops from the anti-skill squad roll up to this facility, and the woman in the group is like, "What kind of sketchy spot is this for thieves to hit up?" One of the officers says the company works on some fancy atmospheric mechanics stuff, but when she asks another guy, he breaks it down simpler. It's a place where they compress air and sell it. They keep poking around, looking for the thieves, and stumble on this dude who's hurt in one of the labs. The woman officer asks him what went down, but before he can spill, boom, there's an explosion, and they have to back off. When the dust settles, they see the blast opened up a hole underground. The officer figures the thieves must have bailed through there. Meanwhile, Accelerator's chilling in the hospital when he hears about the lab heist in School District 4. He presses a button on the device around his neck, floats down to the floor, and shocks everyone in the hospital. Misaka runs over and tells him to stay put because today's the day they're taking the bandage off his head. Accelerator brushes it off, saying it's not like it's some big holiday, but Misaka keeps yelling that it's a special day. They finally take off the bandage, and the doc says he just needs to run a quick checkup, though Accelerator won't need bandages anymore. Accelerator's not into the whole test thing, but the doc insists, saying the bullet he took to the head messed up his speech, math skills, and movement. The doc sits him down and asks for his name and background. Accelerator says his name's Accelerator, and he used to be the top dog among the 7 level 5 espers in Academy City. He explains he can control stuff like momentum, heat, and electricity, and talks about how he got hurt, and now has to rely on the gadget around his neck to walk and talk. The doc listens carefully and says he seems fine. Meanwhile, Misaka, aka Last Order, runs into some other Misakas and checks if the party she's throwing for Accelerator is good to go. She's super nervous since it's her first time planning a party and wants it to be perfect. Accelerator steps out of the room. Back at the hospital, the anti-skill cops from earlier show up, and the woman officer, who seems to be the boss, asks to talk to whoever's running the place. A lady secretly meets her, and the officer asks about her chest wound before bringing up the morning's theft. She explains the thieves made off with some weapon designed to take down Accelerator. The officer, Yomikawa, figures the thieves might show up at the hospital. Right on cue, the thieves hop off a bus outside and blow up all the cars in the parking lot. The thieves roll into the hospital asking for Accelerator, but Yomikawa shuts them down, saying no way. A fight breaks out, and the cops are struggling to keep up because the leader of the thieves is packing some serious heat. The officers try to fall back and regroup, but the thieves are on their tails. One officer tells Yomikawa to go after the thief carrying a bag full of magazines instead. Turns out, that's not so easy either, because Yomikawa realizes the thieves are just high school kids: Takada Yoko, Kidera Minori, and Nakahara Hiromi. Meanwhile, Last Order grabs some cupcakes and starts asking about Accelerator because she's worried about him. Accelerator shows up at the fight and tells everyone to back off because they're annoying him. Last Order gets caught up in the chaos and almost gets hurt, but Accelerator saves her. In doing so, his wound reopens, and blood spills all over the bag of cupcakes she's holding. Yoko grabs the bag and tells Kidera to grab a magazine from Hiro, who's injured, and the two of them make a run for it. The woman who was talking to Yomikawa earlier offers to drive Accelerator if he wants to chase after the thieves. Accelerator tells her to head underground since the thieves will probably try to avoid cameras. Kidera asks Yoko if Hiro got caught and if they can rescue him, but Yoko says they need to focus on getting away clean with the genetic info they stole from Accelerator. Accelerator shows up right in the middle of their escape, and Yoko tries to trap him with a setup she made, but it doesn't work. Accelerator outsmarts them, breaking down all their tactics, and even explaining the weapon they created because of him. He takes down Yoko and almost kills her, but Kidera steps in and stops him. Accelerator grabs the bag and takes it back to Last Order. She gives it to him and tells him to look forward to the first of many parties celebrating his recovery. A girl jumps into a river and wakes up in a hospital. Her name's Hitokawa Hasami, a 16-year-old, and they found a suicide note in her pocket. She's upset because she feels like she's a failure at everything, even at trying to end her own life. The people around her decide to kill her using water from the same river she tried to drown in and make it look like she died from drowning. They say they'll use her body for the sake of justice, and they all chant something called DA's Dogma. Meanwhile, some officers, who seem to be part of a group called Anti-Skill, are chasing a woman who's apparently an Esper with the ability to control dead bodies. HQ warns the officers to be careful because she's dangerous and could hurt someone. They also remind them to make sure no patients at the hospital get hurt during the operation. Accelerator, who's in the hospital, hears some noise and turns off his device so he can focus. The girl manages manages to take down the officers closest to her, but they still figure out where she's headed. She ends up running into Accelerator's room and shows him a picture, asking if he knows where someone called Last Order is. Accelerator doesn't say anything, and the officers burst into the room. The girl tries to escape, but they catch her. Accelerator doesn't get involved, and one of the officers thanks him for cooperating, but he doesn't respond. After they leave, Accelerator turns his device back on and notices the picture the girl dropped on the floor. The officers report to HQ that they've caught the girl, whose name is Esther. HQ says they're glad they didn't have to use something called the coffin, because it's still too unstable to control. Some officers get on the bus where Esther is being held and say they won't kill her since they were told to bring her in alive, but they'll punish her because she's useless to their idea of justice. The bus driver starts the engine, but as soon as the lights come on, he sees Accelerator standing in front of the bus. Accelerator asks if Esther is on board and tells them to let her go because he has some questions for her. The cop who was talking to Accelerator earlier spots him, pulls a gun, and tells him to get back to bed since it's none of his business. They're with Anti-Skill. Accelerator shuts him down, saying Anti-Skill doesn't aim guns at civilians. The cop fires back, saying they're not fake Anti-Skill officers. They're the real deal, Academy City's DA, and they're the true enforcers of justice. Another guy tells the cop to chill since HQ told them to stay away from patients, but the cop calls Accelerator a pest, not a patient, and says it's his job to wipe out pests under DA's orders. The cop goes after Accelerator, but Accelerator blocks him easily. The cop realizes Accelerator's an Esper. Then a bus tries to hit Accelerator, but he flips it over, forcing the cop to bring out a robot. Esther is shocked to see that HQ managed to stick a soul into the robot. She also recognizes Accelerator as the guy she talked to earlier. Accelerator smashes the robot, and a dead body falls out of it, which catches him off guard. While this is happening, the cop bails. Esther confirms that these people are using necromancy. Real Anti-Skill officers show up, and Accelerator fills them in on everything. He tells Yomikawa that the girl didn't just die, she's been dead for 2 days. One of the officers tells Yomikawa the girl was a high schooler who killed herself 2 days ago, and the rescue team already reported her death. They figure out the girl was a level 2 Esper, but the damage caused by the robot was at least level 4. They're shocked that the DA not only transferred her ability from her brain, but also boosted it. Yomikawa asks Accelerator what's going on, but he just tells them to figure it out themselves and walks off. The cop reports back to HQ that the robot was taken down and the girl got away. HQ tells him he's useless since he failed, and the cop decides to hand the job over to someone named Dachshund. Dachshund says Cheong-Chi will handle it. Last Order runs into Accelerator outside and asks why he's out so late. She also asks if he's planning to leave, but he promises he's not and sends her back to bed. When Accelerator gets back to his room, Esther is there. She introduces herself as Esther Rosenthal and asks for his help. She admits she's the one who taught those people how to control dead bodies, and now the whole world could be in danger. Accelerator doesn't want to get involved at first, but after hearing her out, he agrees and tells her to lead him to where they are. While leading Accelerator to the spot where she was held hostage, Esther starts remembering how she was chained up, and Dachshund once tossed a red skull at her. They get to the place, and Accelerator busts in by smashing through the wall. Inside, they see a robot, and Esther calls it Koenki. Dachshund says he's shocked Esther came looking for him on her own, and she calls him Hishigata Mikihiko. Accelerator's confused about what's going on, but Esther remembers when Hishigata first finished building Koenki and showed it to her. She told him to stop back then, but he said he could only pull it off because of the numbers Esther's family wrote down. He also accused her of using dead bodies on a whim. Esther tried to feel bad about it, but Hishigata said she actually enjoyed it. Esther tells Hishigata he's gotta stop. Accelerator steps in, and Hishigata recognizes him as Last Order's guardian. Hishigata tells Accelerator there's no point in fighting him right now, but he also brags that he knows a lot about Accelerator. To prove it, he lists off some of Accelerator's skills. This fires up Accelerator, and he attacks Koenki, but no matter what he does, it doesn't faze Hishigata or Koenki. Hishigata says he'll respectfully take his leave and exits through the roof. Esther admits Hishigata's right. She did use dead bodies to do her dirty work. Accelerator asks if that even matters since she's trying to stop him now. Then Last Order shows up holding a nylon bag and tells Accelerator she got 3 packs of food just like he asked. But she gets distracted when she notices Esther. She asks who Esther is and doesn't let Accelerator answer for her. Esther introduces herself, but Accelerator cuts her off before she can tell Last Order she's a necromancer. Last Order gets so mad at their back and forth that she chucks all 3 food packs at Accelerator, accusing him of cheating on her. Accelerator tells her to knock it off since everyone's hungry. Esther is blown away by Last Order, remembering she's basically a human guinea pig who's died over 10,000 times. They all leave the room and head to a restaurant. Meanwhile, a doctor is doing a checkup check up on someone and pulls out a DA card. At the restaurant, Esther is blown away by all the food on the menu since she's never seen anything like it before. She asks about every dish, and Accelerator explains them by their actual names, while Last Order describes them based on how she sees them. Esther's down to try everything. Last Order feeds her, and Esther gets emotional because it tastes so good. Esther feeds Last Order back because Last Order says that's what families do. Accelerator steps away from the table, thinking about DA and how he needs someone who knows shady people. He calls Yoshikawa, the woman in the hospital with the chest wound, and asks if she knows DA. Even after he describes everything he's heard about them, she says she doesn't know. She promises to look into it. When Accelerator gets back to the table, Esther and Last Order are gone because Esther threw up. Last Order leaves a note telling Accelerator to cover the bill. When Accelerator gets back to his room, Esther is undressed, and Last Order throws a cloth at his face to cover her. Esther says she doesn't mind, but Last Order insists she should care, and Esther says she'll be more careful next time. The doctor shows up and tells Last Order it's time for her regular checkup. She leaves, and the doctor tells Accelerator that Yomikawa asked him to check out the dead high schooler, but there was nothing he could do since she was already dead. The doctor shows Accelerator something he found in the girl's mouth. After the doctor leaves, Esther says the card is a low-level charm, and she and Accelerator head to the morgue. At the morgue, Esther explains that she taught those people things she shouldn't have. She decides to put a fake soul, Hutu, into Hasami's body because Hasami is still a person. Accelerator connects with Hasami's lingering thoughts and gets a glimpse of her past and how she died. Esther successfully puts Hutu into Hasami, but some officers kick them out of the morgue. Accelerator snatches something from them, and they attack him. Hasami gets up. The cop is shocked when Hasami gets up and powers up Hutu. He's like, "You're supposed to be dead because of our justice," and starts shooting at her, but she dodges. When he points the gun straight at her head, Accelerator steps in front of her and tells the dude he'll show him what a real monster looks like. Accelerator tells the officer that since they love killing people and melting them away, they're the real monsters. And since he's a monster too, they can settle this fight right now. He grabs the guy and says he was hoping to use bioelectricity to make some art, but the guy won't live to see it. The dude passes out in Accelerator's hands, and Accelerator's like, "Man, this is embarrassing for villains everywhere." Then he looks at the second guy and says it's his turn, but Accelerator's vision is blurry, and he realizes his head is bleeding again. The officer seizes the moment, causes some chaos, and bolts. Hasami steps in and saves them from getting crushed by the walls the guy breaks as he escapes. Esther's worried about Accelerator, but Hasami reassures her, saying he'll recover with proper treatment since his injuries aren't life-threatening. Meanwhile, the dude running away almost crashes into a little girl in a wheelchair, but one of the Misakas saves her by stopping the guy. The dude traps Misaka with his weapon, but Hasami shows up carrying Esther. A car pulls up, and someone inside tells the guy to hurry up and get in. The guy jumps in and decides to take Misaka as his hostage. Esther tells Hasami they shouldn't chase them now and should wait until they're better prepared. Anti-Skill shows up, checks the tire tracks, and figures out that DA is behind this mess again. Later, Accelerator's back with the doctor, who's annoyed that he won't stay still. Meanwhile, some high school girls are chatting on the street. One of them tells the other about this crazy rumor she heard. There's a train that's always moving and never stops. The other girl doesn't buy it. Hishigata makes a call and addresses the person on the other end as Mr. Breeder. The guy tells Hishigata to call him Nakimoto instead, and promises not to call him Dachshund anymore. Hishigata asks if the train is currently under School District 7, and says DA is going way too far with their actions. Nakimoto agrees to handle it, and they hang up. Nakimoto then tells his secretary that he once thought DA could be useful to him, but now that they're getting out of control, he's going to shut them down. A woman gets a call and asks the person on the other end if they're sure about what they're asking for. When they say yes, she hangs up and presses 3 buttons. 3 people show up, and she tells them to gear up because it's time to get to work. Accelerator wakes up, and Last Order, who had fallen asleep, wakes up too, feeling bummed she missed the important part after staying up for so long. Accelerator tells her to grab him some coffee. Even though the doctor said it's a bad idea, Last Order decides to get it anyway, thinking it'll help him. Misaka shows up with a letter for Accelerator, letting him know that Esther is chasing after the people who attacked him because someone's been kidnapped. The person who got taken is number 10046. Yoshikawa calls Accelerator and says she's done some digging. Turns out DA stands for disciplinary action, but it's really just a secret group. She mentions that DA has a lot of people backing them right now, including a sketchy neuroscientist. She also warns that things are getting messy because some of DA's supporters are starting to turn on them. She tells Accelerator to be careful if he decides to get involved in this. Meanwhile, DA has a meeting and decides they need to show Nakimoto how strong they've become since he's trying to go against them. Hishigata listens to their plans without saying much until he notices the kidnapped Misaka on the screen. He demands they hand her over to him in the name of justice. Yomikawa digs up more info on DA and is shocked to find out that the group is full of shady people from the anti-skill team. News breaks about an explosion in the 3rd District, and the officers rush out to handle it. The 4 kids who caused the explosion are checking to make sure they wiped out everyone like they were ordered to, aiming to take out the entire DA. The anti-skill squad blows up the entrance to the Sukunabikona food supplement factory, and the officers from Assault Team 1 storm in, getting into a shootout with some DA officers. Yomikawa is with them too. The DA officers are confused about how Anti-Skill found out about the factory. Someone reports the situation back to Anti-Skill HQ. Meanwhile, Hasami and Esther are on the move. Esther is thinking about the kidnapped girl and is determined to keep her promise to save her. Last Order comes back to Accelerator with the coffee he asked for and mentions she also treated herself to a can of pomegranates. Accelerator tries to charge his battery, but it slips out of his hand, so Last Order helps him out. The DA officers run out of ammo and fall back to regroup, giving Anti-Skill the chance to push further into the factory. Ito asks Yomikawa how DA and Anti-Skill could come from the same roots. Yomikawa explains that while they may have started from the same place, DA's roots are rotten because they took their idea of justice way too far. Over at DA HQ, there's a meeting about the fight. They don't think they can hold up against Anti-Skill since they've got endless reinforcements. The leader asks Hishigata if they can use the weapon, but Hishigata says it's useless since Esther escaped and he couldn't get his hands on Last Order. He adds that he might be able to use it if he gets one of the sisters. The leader asks who the sisters are, and Hishigata tells him to hand over the hostage they have. The leader agrees, and Hishigata ends the call, saying he's ready to get rid of those justice-obsessed idiots. He then asks Hirumi if the hostage will be enough to activate the weapon. A green-haired woman stares back at him. At the supplement factory, one of the DA officers gets a call to move the hostage to Chemistry Building 6 at Seiin High School. After the call, he tells the others they're deploying Tarantula. One of the 4 kids mentions there's a bag with a girl in it in DA's ace and asks where they're headed next. The leader says they're going to the Sukunabikona food supplement factory. The anti-skill team notices the DA officers backing off and decides to push further into the factory, but they stop when they see something strange. One officer wonders if it's just heavy factory equipment, but when it starts shooting at them, they realize it's a Gatling gun. They retreat as the weapon fires at them. Back at Anti-Skill HQ, they're shocked to learn DA has something like that. Yomikawa spots some cops bolting with a bag and takes off after them. Turns out Ito already saw them and is trying to stop them. Yomikawa teams up with Ito, climbs up, and goes straight for the DA officers who are running off with a hostage. She manages to stop 2 of them and empties the last guy's gun until he drops the hostage. That's when Yomikawa realizes the bag has a person inside. She and the officer end up pointing guns at each other. Meanwhile, the 4 kids take out the DA backup and the Gatling gun stops firing because it overheats. The officer in the Tarantula mech switches to some spinning blade weapons instead. The kids manage to stop the Tarantula from moving, and the driver realizes they're Nakimoto's crew, the Darksiders. The driver tries to keep going and stall for time, but the girls mess him up, causing the Tarantula to crash into walls and putting Yomikawa and the hostage in the bag in danger. Yomikawa makes a move to rescue the girl in the bag and almost pulls it off, but an officer hits her and the girl slips out of her grip. Just then, Esther shows up and saves the girl in the nick of time. When Esther almost falls, Hasami jumps in to save her too. The 4 girls try to grab the girl in the bag, saying they'll let Esther and Hasami go if they hand her over. Yomikawa steps up and offers to fight them instead of Esther and Hasami. One of the girls shifts into a different form and threatens to kill them after realizing Yomikawa is part of the anti-skill group. Meanwhile, Last Order tells Accelerator that his battery is charged up and asks him to call her if he needs anything else before she leaves the room. Accelerator heads out, and Last Order asks where he's going. He says he's hitting up the convenience store, and she tells him to grab her a pomegranate. Once outside, Accelerator turns off his device and takes off flying, hyped up. The woman who sent the 4 girls gets an update from them and says they might score a bonus if they bring back the girl in the bag. Yomikawa asks the girls why they hate teachers so much, and Naru, the one who changed her form earlier, says teachers are the worst in Academy City because they failed to protect everyone. That's why they're set on taking out all the teachers, working their way up to the headmaster to finish him off. Yomikawa tries to convince them that not all teachers are bad, saying people like her are trying to protect Academy City from the real bad guys. The girls are thinking it over when a DA survivor shows up and attacks Naru. Naru gets mad, blocks the bullets, and decides there really aren't any good teachers. She calls Yaku, one of the other girls, to take care of the guy. Yaku jumps down and throws some super cold refrigerant at minus 269 degrees, freezing the guy solid. Naru kicks him away and turns back to Yomikawa, apologizing for making her wait. Yomikawa tells Esther to run off with the hostage and says she's counting on her. Esther tells Hasami to make sure nothing happens to Yomikawa, so Hasami steps in to fight, which annoys Naru. The other girls size up Hasami and figure she's probably an esper and an honor student trying to protect the teacher. They tell Naru to take out the student first to make the teacher suffer more. Hasami studies Naru's powers and tells Esther the fight between her and Naru will last about 10 minutes. Hasami goes up against Naru, but Naru's mascot suit can switch between defense and offense, catching Hasami off guard. Naru's psychokinetic paper is as tough as tungsten alloy, but as flexible as fabric, and with her crazy fighting style, she's a beast in combat. Hasami dodges most of the attacks but still gets hit on her thigh. Esther starts panicking, wondering how to save Hasami and keep her alive. Naru decides to finish Hasami off, but gets stopped by something, which turns out to be Esther's psychokinetic powers. Hasami now has some kind of armor made from the dead, but Naru says it won't stop her and goes in with her mascot suit's attack. She tries using her killer punch move but gets blocked again by Hasami's powers. Esther loses her patience and tells the girls to leave, but Yaku tells Naru to take them down since they're playing dirty. Naru listens and upgrades her weapon to an excavator version. She tries to crush Hasami with it, but Hasami runs. Naru catches her when she tries to protect Esther, and Esther begs her to stop. Naru says she's doing it for justice. Esther breaks down, crying about how the world is full of despair. Naru blames the teachers and says she'll kill them all for it. She powers up her weapon to finish them off, but Accelerator shows up and destroys the excavator, leaving the four girls shocked and wondering who he is. Esther thanks Accelerator for saving them, and he tells her to take everyone and get out of there. One of the four girls, their leader, asks Accelerator to join their group because she likes the look in his eyes and his face. She says if he joins them, they can go on a teacher hunting spree together as a team of 5, but no matter what she says or offers, Accelerator doesn't react. Frustrated, she yells at him to say something. Accelerator just says something and then attacks her, making her lose her balance. He steps closer, picks up Tarantula, and holds it over her head before dropping it. Naru and the others rush in to protect their leader. Naru asks if they should retreat, but the leader refuses, saying they'd get punished if they ran. Instead, she tells them to attack Accelerator with a combo move. She reminds them they're the unbeatable scavengers and orders them to use their scavenger combo. They trap Accelerator inside a structure called Iron Maiden and activate liquid thermite at around 4,000 degrees, expecting to burn him up completely, leaving no trace behind. But to their shock, Accelerator walks out of the Iron Maiden unharmed and takes down the Darksiders. The scientist who sent the Darksiders is upset that they ran into Accelerator, knowing this means they'll lose their payment and face punishment. Meanwhile, Accelerator wonders why what was supposed to be his rehab ended so quickly. Hishigat is thinking maybe he made the setup way too complicated, but then he remembers that once the memories of 10,031 deaths hit, he'll finally be able to finish the formula. He tells Hirumi they're almost done with their research. Esther looks around the factory and feels bummed out. It's a mess, and she doesn't think anything good can come from fighting like this. Hasami brings over the hostage, and Esther checks her out, confirming she's okay since her vitals are still solid. Accelerator swaps out his battery and asks Esther if she can heal Yomikawa, but she says she can only do basic first aid. Hirumi just smiles. Esther checks on Naru and the other girls, the Darksiders, and while she's doing that, she tells Accelerator she knows he didn't mean to kill those girls, even though he caused some damage. Accelerator tells her to stop jumping to conclusions, but she insists he's the only one who can help, and straight up asks him to be her master. She pulls out this red object, shaping it like it's some Rosenthal family tradition, symbolizing she's offering up her flesh and blood. Accelerator tells her to go ask Yomikawa instead, and the red ball thing flies off. Esther chases after it while Accelerator just walks away. Hirumi spots the hostage girl lying on the floor through a screen and starts up some kind of robot. Esther tells Hasami, now calling her Hwotu, to beg Accelerator to be her master. They both run after Accelerator, pleading with him to take Esther on as a student. Accelerator stops and asks Hwotu why she's not wearing any clothes, and Esther explains they got so caught up chasing the bad guy, they forgot to grab her some. Esther offers her own dress to give Hwotu some protection, but Hwotu turns it down and asks for Accelerator's clothes instead, since they want him to be the master. Accelerator shuts them down and stops them from following him. Yomikawa and the Misaka girl get back on their feet and ask for first aid. Esther tells Accelerator she needs him to be her master because she can't take down Hirumi alone and needs his power. Accelerator pauses, and right on cue, a robot shows up. Esther calls it Taoti, some Rosenthal magical array thing, way stronger than Hwotu. The robot comes straight at them. Esther warns everyone to stay back, but Accelerator jumps in, telling them to stay put. Esther begs him to be careful since they don't know what this thing can do. Accelerator dodges the robot's attack, and then it multiplies itself, creating another one. Accelerator's intrigued but realizes it's going to be tough fighting 2-on-1. The robot tells him to back off, and Accelerator's shocked because it's got a female voice, which Esther recognizes as Hirumi's. The robot spawns a third one, and this time it grabs the Misaka girl. Yomikawa yells at it to let her go. Esther tries to save the girl but can't, and the robots take off from the factory with the girl in their grip. They fly away, but Accelerator isn't having it and chases after them. Esther asks Huotu if she can go after them, but with all the flames around, it's a no-go. Esther tells Huotu to stay back. Yomikawa is confused, asking how Hasami is still alive since she saw her dead body. Esther explains that Huotu's soul is now inside Hasami's body because of her Rosenthal family powers. Hishigata is pumped to see Hirumi has snagged one of the sisters and brought her to him. He's ready to dive back into his research when he spots Accelerator coming their way. Esther breaks down necromancy for Yomikawa, and they figure out that Hishigata is the real problem. Esther also mentions that the robots from earlier are part of the evil spirits of the numbers and are even more dangerous than necromancy. She says creatures made this way are super hard to control and can wreck entire cities. The monsters stop for a bit, and Hishigata talks to Accelerator, but Accelerator tells him to quit hiding and show himself. Accelerator attacks one of the monsters, and Hishigata says he can't wait to put Accelerator in a coffin because he's first rank and something big is bound to happen. Hirumi talks to Hishigata, and they decide to focus on their goals first. They take off again, but Accelerator keeps on their tail. Esther tells Yomikawa she wants to stop Hishigata and Hirumi herself, since she's the one who started all this. She casts a spell and leaves the factory, with Huotu tagging along. Yomikawa is left stunned, thinking about how Academy City has so many kids trying to handle things on their own. Accelerator catches up to Hirumi and Hishigata, who are already copying data from the Misaka girl's 10,031 deaths. Accelerator reveals a hidden monster, which blows Hishigata's mind. Hishigata tries to throw Accelerator off by saying he killed the guinea pigs in the past, but isn't trying to play hero now. Accelerator calls him out and keeps chasing them. Esther tells Huotu she's not going after the monsters because she doesn't want to get in Accelerator's way. Instead, she wants to do what she can from where she is, since all of this is happening because she came to the city. Hirumi asks her brother Hishigata what it'd be like to hit level 6, and Hishigata says it'd be way stronger than the top-ranked level 5. Hirumi's hyped about her brother's research and stoked to meet Esther, a necromancer who's supposed to help them chase their dream. Hishigata shows off all the cool science stuff they've done so far, and Hirumi asks Esther to help them make the first ever level 6 Esper. Esther explains that necromancy is about putting a fake soul into a dead body to boost its abilities. She even shows off some cards she brought, but Hishigata flexes about his science methods instead. When Esther asks how he's planning to make a level 6 Esper, he doesn't really give her a solid answer. The next day, Esther's wondering who exactly she's supposed to help and what her role is. She takes off her dress by the river, getting ready for a bath, but everyone around freaks out, calling her the infamous undresser. Hirumi quickly throws her clothes back on and drags her to a gym, where she can shower without anyone staring. After her shower, Hirumi explains that stripping in public can get you arrested. Hirumi goes back to her boxing training, but Esther notices she's not great at it. Later, Esther heads into Hishigata's lab and listens to him talk research with his partner. Hishigata mentions he sent Hirumi home because her vitals were low. His partner says they need a new test subject and asks if Hishigata's gonna hire more girls. Hishigata rambles on and then asks Esther if she's freaked out by what she's heard. Esther says she's seen worse as a necromancer. Hishigata explains that during their experiments, locking the girls, aka the test subjects, into machines boosted their abilities, but if the machines were too big, it messed with their minds. He talks about how much the mind and soul matter to him as a scientist and how they affect the experiment's success. He's confident that someday, anyone will be able to hit level 6 easily. Esther's shocked to realize Hishigata's been experimenting on Hirumi, but Hirumi doesn't seem to care. She's just focused on reaching level 6. Esther meets up with Hirumi, and Hirumi's like, I don't even know what my powers are for. Hirumi asks Esther to help her out because she wants to be useful to her brother. She makes Esther promise to help, and they head over to see Hishigata together. Hirumi tells her brother she's ready to hit level 6 now that Esther's around, so they don't have to wait forever. But Hishigata's not on board. He's never seen necromancy in action, and doesn't want Hirumi risking her life for something they could probably figure out later. Hirumi gets mad and storms out of the lab. Later, Hirumi takes her own life, But before she dies, she records a video apologizing to Hishigata for not showing him her medical report earlier. Turns out, she knew she didn't have much time left. She begs Esther and Hishigata to make her a level 6 right away, because she can't wait years for it. Hishigata is crushed and blames himself for not realizing sooner that she was sick. Esther steps in and asks if there's anything she can do since she promised Hirumi she'd help no matter what. Hishigata ends up hooking Hirumi's body up to this monster he built, called Lab Equipment 6, and she comes back to life, which gets him all hyped. His partner walks in, happy that Hishigata finally decided to use Hirumi for the experiment, but Hishigata's like, nah, I'm done with this research. I'm taking my sister and leaving. Then Hirumi knocks everyone in the room out cold. Esther realizes one of her cards is missing, and it hits her. The thing that's alive isn't really Hirumi. It's some fake soul she can't control. Esther gets stuck helping the monster because of this weird riddle about whether Hirumi's still alive or not. And that's how everything kicks off. Esther pulls a sword out of the ground, stressing about what's gonna happen to Hirumi if she uses Emperor Shun's blade. Huotu notices and asks if she's crying, but Esther denies it. Esther tells Huotu that they're the only ones who can stop Hishigata and Hirumi. Hishigata tells Hirumi they've almost got the formula figured out, and their dream is finally about to come true. Hirumi asks Hishigata what he wants to do once they've reached their goal. He says Academy City will have no choice but to recognize their success, but Hirumi says she's asking about life outside of research. Hishigata says he'll make sure they live normal lives, and Hirumi says she'll be happy as long as she's with her brother. Then Hishigata spots Accelerator again, and gets annoyed that he just won't quit. Accelerator fights the monsters, and ends up wrecking the data transfer progress, which really ticks off Hishigata. Hirumi tells her brother to chill because she's got a plan. She leads the monsters into the middle of the city. Hishigata is impressed that instead of fighting Accelerator head-on, Hirumi slowed him down with her strategy, but it also caused a ton of damage to Academy City. Accelerator watches them leave and smirks, saying he knows exactly where they're headed. He kicks the last monster in their direction and tells it to announce that he's coming. The data transfer speeds up and is almost done when Accelerator shows up, and Hishigata notices him. Accelerator frees Misaka from her restraints, and she opens her eyes, happy to see who saved her. Meanwhile, Last Order wakes up thinking Accelerator is back, but she's bummed when she realizes it was just a dream and complains about being bored. Hishigata and Hirumi come out to face Accelerator, and Accelerator says he hated Hishigata's voice from the start, but hates his face even more. Hirumi chimes in, saying she doesn't like Accelerator either. Hishigata starts bragging about the monsters he used before, saying they were level 3, then boosted to level 5, but they still couldn't beat Accelerator. Accelerator fires back, saying combining junk with junk just makes more junk. Hishigata agrees, but says the new formula will create something better, and even Hirumi will become a level 6 Esper. Then Hishigata and Hirumi leave Accelerator and Misaka to deal with the monsters. Misaka offers to help fight the monster, but Accelerator tells her to head back. As soon as Accelerator charges at Taoti, he gets teleported to another area and can't hide his shock. Hishigata explains to Misaka that Taoti and Cheongchi now share powers and work together thanks to the Siseong talisman he stole from Esther and the new formula he added. Hishigata is pumped because he thinks this will finally kill Accelerator. He starts the process to make Hirumi a level 6 Esper and tells her they should hit the gym together once she's leveled up. Hirumi hesitates but eventually agrees. Misaka is watching Accelerator go at it with Cheongchi and Taoti, but she's bummed out because all she can do is stand there and watch. Accelerator is trying his best, but the monsters keep landing hits on him while he's figuring out how strong they've gotten. Esther and Huotu show up where Misaka is and ask her where Hishigata is. Meanwhile, Hishigata is keeping an eye on things and sees Esther and Huotu. There's only 20% left before Hirumi's installation is done, so Hishigata sends Hunden to attack them. Esther warns him that Hirumi is already gone, and that Taowu, one of the evil spirits of the numbers, is controlling her body now, but Hishigata isn't buying it. Accelerator pulls off this crazy move, creating a fire dune with friction, and completely wrecks Taoti's camera. Misaka is blown away, still glued to the fight. With the camera gone, the other monster is weaker, so Accelerator takes it on next. He makes it knock down some construction rods, then uses those rods to take the monster out. Hishigata gives him props, saying he didn't expect anything less since Accelerator just took down Cheongchi and Taoti like it was no big deal. But then he brags that the whole fight was just to stall for time, and now Hirumi's installation is done. He tells Accelerator he's too late. Accelerator takes off, heading straight for where Hishigata and Hirumi are. Esther is hiding with Shun's blade, ready to separate Taowu from Hirumi's body, but Hishigata gets in her way, and she ends up stabbing him instead. At the same time the installation finishes, Hishigata's stoked that Hirumi still looks just as gorgeous as ever, even after the whole setup is done. But then, Hishigata drops to the ground, and Esther's standing there, staring at the scene with a bloody blade in her hand. Hirumi wakes up, sees Esther, and complains about being naked. She grabs something to cover up and jokes about Esther playing dress-up with the sword, not really getting what's going on. Hirumi reaches for her brother, but Esther's still trying to wrap her head around the fact that Hirumi's actually gone, and it's Taowu controlling her body now. Hirumi looks bummed that Esther stabbed her brother, but she connects back to him. Meanwhile, Hishigata, even in pain, is psyched that his sisters finally hit level 6. Suddenly, this red light shoots out of Hirumi and beams into the sky. Outside, Accelerator spots it and wonders what's up. Meanwhile, the anti-skill officers have the DA cornered and are telling them to surrender. One DA guy thinks they should give up, but another insists their justice mission isn't over yet. So the anti-skill keeps chasing them into a building until some weird thing expands and blocks their way. Ito mentions that Hishigata's lab isn't far, and this strange growth might be some kind of new weapon. Yomikawa realizes they're trapped. Huotu carries Esther and Hishigata out of the lab, while Hirumi keeps spreading everywhere. Outside, Accelerator saves Misaka from getting swallowed up by the creepy growth that's wrecking everything. Esther, Hishigata, and Huotu make it safely into an elevator. Hishigata thanks Esther, saying they couldn't have done anything without her, but Esther tells him straight up that Hirumi isn't really his sister anymore, it's Taowu. She explains that no matter how many times she's tried necromancy, she's never been able to bring someone back from the dead. Hishigata doesn't buy it and says they should just ask Hirumi. Right then, Hirumi shows up in the elevator. Hirumi acts confused about why Esther's being so weird and tries to convince them she's still herself. But then, after calculating how much longer Hishigata has left to live, she deletes what's left of Hirumi and reveals she's actually Taowu. Hishigata's totally shocked. Taowu congratulates Esther, saying she's about to perfect what the Rosenthal family's been working on for 23 generations. Esther demands to know why Taowu disobeyed her orders. Taowu explains that when she was created, she talked to a devil who told her to fulfill the Rosenthal family's ultimate wish, which goes beyond Esther's commands. Hishigata, completely overwhelmed, begs Hirumi to stop messing with them. Taowu asks Esther if she remembers the Rosenthal family's wish, and Esther says they wanted to create the perfect golem. She thinks back to how the first person who made a golem using a dead body got kicked out and labeled a heretic. But even after that, people kept working on it for generations. Now, Taowu has finally made a perfect body and soul. Taowu says they should celebrate because a 400-year-old dream is finally coming true, but Esther isn't on board. She thinks messing with death is wrong. Esther tells Taowu it's a bad idea to mess with death. She shares how she once lost a friend and tried to fix it, but ended up losing them all over again. Taowu asks if she's saying to stop following the devil's orders, and Esther agrees. She orders Taowu to stop in the name of the Rosenthal family. Taowu sighs and seems to give in, but then says she'll still carry out the family's wish. Taowu reveals that she's actually Isaac Rosenthal, the fourth head of the family, who hid himself in the Taowu card and is the devil who tricked her. Soldiers show up at Isaac's place, demanding he release General Lee and his daughter. Isaac says he didn't hold them hostage, but instead gave them a taste of the necromancy they claim to hate. When the soldiers see the father and daughter, they're so horrified they throw up. Isaac's creations, which he calls his art, attack the soldiers. That's when Isaac gets the idea to create the ultimate being. Taowu blames Esther for Hirumi's suicide, saying necromancers bring death wherever they go. Esther is crushed when Taowu declares he won't stop until the Rosenthal family's wish is fulfilled, claiming everything that's happened was part of his plan. Huotu carries them away as Taowu keeps growing. Outside, they run into Accelerator, who tells them to get out of there while he goes to face Taowu. Esther admits to Accelerator that everything went wrong the moment she stepped into the lab. Accelerator tells her he'll take down Taowu even if she's ready to give up. Academy City feels totally lifeless, and everyone's staring at this massive golem, trying to figure out what it is and what it's all about. Taowu says she's got the time and resources to mess around and experiment once she's done creating it. Then Accelerator shows up and asks her if this is really what she wants to be. Taowu's like, yeah, I want to be the ultimate being, with a perfect body and soul. Accelerator tells her to take her experiments somewhere else, not in Academy City, but Taowu claps back, saying the city's into this kind of stuff too, since they've been chasing after a level 6 Esper. She adds that Academy City is the only place in the world where she found the memories of the horror of 10,031 deaths. Taowu calls out Accelerator as the guy who killed all those girls because their memories are stuck in her head, and she can see exactly how he did it. She even says she respects him for it since she couldn't pull off killing that many people herself. Accelerator's pissed at how she's using the girl's memories. He attacks her, but she just keeps healing herself and mocks him, calling him desperate, before vanishing to finish her transformation into a supreme being. being. Esther remembers Taowu telling her that Hirumi's suicide is entirely her fault because death always follows a necromancer. Now, Esther's questioning her purpose since her family, the Rosenthals, are to blame, and she couldn't save or protect anyone she cared about. Meanwhile, a Misaka tucks last order in, wishing her sweet dreams on nights like this. The Misaka girl then asks Accelerator if the golem is really the supreme being the Rosenthal family wanted. Accelerator says no, calling the golem nothing but a pile of trash. He then turns to Esther and asks her what she truly wants to protect, because that's the only way she can become a real hero. Esther thinks about it, remembers her promise to Hirumi, and tells Accelerator to help her take down the monster. She also asks Wotu to join the fight, saying she finally knows what she wants to protect. Accelerator, Esther, Wotu, and the Misaka girl move forward, but run into Hishigata again. Accelerator's like, "How'd you get ahead of us?" Hishigata explains he knows all the secret routes in the school, and says he can't let the guy who wrecked Hirumi get away. Misaka asks if they can actually beat the monster, and Esther says yes because she has Shun's blade, which is loaded with poison specifically designed to mess with Taowu. But she admits it won't be easy because Taowu's body is super messed up, and blowing it up won't work since it'll just regenerate. Hishigata offers to guide them to where Hirumi, now Taowu, is hiding. Esther warns Hishigata that moving around could be risky, but he brushes it off, saying it doesn't matter since he's gonna die anyway. He points out that the body is spreading into the school walls, and it won't take long before it reaches its final form. The anti-skill officers, like Yomikawa, Ito, and the others, are told by the higher-ups not to attack Taowu since they don't know what it is. Instead, they use a drone to check it out and get freaked out by whatever kind of creature is causing all this and why. Taowu watches Accelerator and his group moving around inside her. She feels like her body is slowly evolving, but realizes something's missing. Some DA officers are confused about why they haven't seen the anti-skill team and almost think they've lost them, right before they get swallowed up by Taowu. Taowu feels good about this and figures out she needs to absorb more people to speed up her transformation. Accelerator stops her from taking in anyone from his group, even though he's wondering why this monster suddenly seems so hungry. The DA officers call for backup, but since anti-skill doesn't have the go-ahead yet, they hold off. Yomikawa steps up, saying she'll help because, first and foremost, she's a teacher and can't ignore people asking for help. The other officers back her up and follow her lead. Inside Taowu, the dead officers come back to life like zombies and attack Accelerator and his group. Accelerator takes them out, telling Misaka they're already dead. The group keeps moving, and Accelerator asks how much longer until they reach the monster's main body, saying he's running out of time. Meanwhile, Taowu is happy, feeling like she's making Rosenthal's 400-year-old dream come true. Accelerator and the crew finally roll up to Taowu's main body, but as soon as Accelerator gets close, this bright light flashes and freezes him up so he can't move. Taowu starts bragging that she's hit the jackpot, a perfect golem with a perfect soul and body, basically on the same level as some god-tier being. Esther watches Accelerator, who's still stuck and looking rough, and starts wondering if Taowu's really hit that perfect golem status. Meanwhile, Accelerator's trying to figure out what kind of crazy power Taowu's packing and thinks his time might be running out. Taowu keeps sucking up more DA officers, getting stronger by the second, but then, out of nowhere, she starts blurting stuff she doesn't mean, like how Academy City needs real justice. She suddenly shuts up, confused about why she's even saying stuff like justice. Accelerator seizes the moment, grabs Esther and the squad, and heads to the surface where Taowu's real body is chilling. Taowu's caught off guard when she sees them. Esther whips out her knife and makes a beeline for Taowu, but Wotu steps in to handle Taowu's powers that are trying to block Esther. Just as Esther's about to land the stab, Taowu shapeshifts into Hirumi's form, throwing Esther off her game. Taowu laughs it up, mocking Esther, saying the Rosenthal family must have hit rock bottom if someone like her is in charge. Accelerator snaps Esther out of it, telling her to pull herself together and remember why she even came to the surface. He reminds her that if she wants to be a hero and protect what matters, she's gotta stay focused and go all in. After their little pep talk, Taowu butts in, sarcastically asking if they're done with their motivational speech, then declares it's time for her to bring justice to the world. She raises her hands, and something purple starts forming, but then she glitches out, and it stops. She realizes Hishigata and Misaka cut off her connection to the coffin holding Hirumi's body, messing up her flow. Esther lunges at Taowu again, but Taowu's powers stop her before she can land the stab. Taowu claims it's game over for Esther. Misaka and Wotu jump in to back her up, pushing the blade closer to Taowu. Taowu starts starts begging them not to do it, saying she's got big plans she still wants to pull off. Accelerator destroys another chunk of Taowu, and when she asks who he is and why he keeps messing with her, he just says he's a villain, same as her, and tells Esther to finish the job. Esther calls out Taowu's name, and Taowu gets yanked out of Hirumi's body. Hirumi says her goodbyes to Esther and Hishigata before her body is completely destroyed. Hishigata dies too, feeling a little bummed he didn't get to be a hero. The crazy power that came out of Isaac when Taowu was using Hirumi's body starts going wild, and Misaka says it's messing up space and the Misaka network. She warns that if it blows up, it'll flatten the whole planet. Accelerator tries to handle it with his vector control but can't pull it off. Still, he says he'll take the hit himself if Last Order, the hero, isn't around. Last Order is peacefully snoozing. Accelerator throws everything he's got at the problem, manages to stop the power from wrecking everything, and collapses. Esther cries next to his unconscious, drained body. Nakimoto and his secretary talk about what went down with Hishigata and how they managed to get things under control. Last Order asks Accelerator why he skipped his last checkup, but instead of answering, he tells her to grab something for him from School District 14. Yomikawa shows up in the hospital room and says they've handled the situation but wants to know more about what really went down since Accelerator was in the thick of it. He doesn't spill much and just says the villain's fight caused some kind of chemical reaction. Esther takes Wotu out of Hasami's body and promises to always remember her. Wotu tells Esther she made the right call. Esther says goodbye to Accelerator, promising to find her way as the head of Rosenthal and as his student. Another wild chapter kicks off in Academy City, and Accelerator says life here is never boring.